Hello, and welcome to the English Listen Lab. Today, we have an inspiring and ambitious story for English learners at the A1 level. This story follows James, a well-dressed young man with a big dream, to work at the White House and meet the president. Join him as he faces challenges, learns important lessons, and strives to achieve his goal. Listen carefully, enjoy the story, and try to understand the words and phrases as you follow along. James's journey, the road to the White House. Chapter 1. A Dream is Born. James had always been a dreamer. Ever since he was a child, he had admired great leaders, politicians, and historical figures who changed the world. Growing up in a small town, he didn't have access to the grand buildings of Washington, D.C., but that didn't stop him from imagining himself walking the halls of the White House one day. Every evening, he would sit by the television, watching political speeches and government debates with fascination. He admired how leaders spoke with confidence, how they inspired people, and how they made decisions that shaped the nation. His favorite leader was Abraham Lincoln, a man who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the greatest presidents in history. If Lincoln could do it, why can't I? James often thought. His parents encouraged his ambitions. If you want to achieve something great, you have to work hard, his father told him one night as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Nothing is impossible if you believe in yourself. James took his father's words to heart. He began reading books about leadership, history, and government. He kept a notebook where he wrote down his thoughts and ideas about the future. One night, he wrote in big letters, "I will work in the White House." It was a promise to himself, and he intended to keep it. As he got older, his determination grew stronger. He participated in school debates, joined the student government, and even started a club that discussed political issues. While other kids played video games or went out with friends, James spent his time learning about policies, leadership strategies, and how governments functioned. But he knew that dreams alone wouldn't get him where he wanted to go. He needed to take action, and the first step was education. Chapter 2. The First Step. As James reached high school, he realized that getting into a good university was crucial to achieving his goals. He dedicated himself to his studies, often staying up late to read about international relations, economics, and American history. He understood that if he wanted to stand out, he needed to be knowledgeable and hardworking. At the age of 18, James applied to several universities, but his top choice was a prestigious university in Washington, D.C. This school was known for producing leaders, policymakers, and government officials. It was his golden ticket to the White House. The application process was tough. He had to write essays about his ambitions, get recommendation letters, and perform well in interviews. The waiting period was nerve-wracking. He checked his email every day, hoping for good news. Then, one morning, as he was having breakfast, he received an email. His heart pounded as he clicked on it. "Congratulations, James. You have been accepted to our university. We look forward to welcoming you." James jumped out of his chair in excitement. He had done it. The first step toward his dream was complete. His parents hugged him, proud of their son's determination. Packing his bags, James said goodbye to his small town and boarded a bus to Washington, D.C. As the city's skyline came into view, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was the place where decisions were made, where history was written. He knew he had a long road ahead, but he was ready for the challenge. Chapter 3. Life in Washington, D.C. Moving to Washington, D.C. was a life-changing experience for James. The city was bustling with energy, filled with people who shared the same ambitions. Every street, every building seemed to tell a story of the nation's history. His university was more challenging than he expected. The professors were strict, the coursework was demanding, and the competition was fierce. Many of his classmates came from families with political connections, something James lacked. He sometimes felt like an outsider, but he refused to be discouraged. To support himself, James took a part-time job at a small cafe near campus. He worked long hours, making coffee and cleaning tables, but he saw it as part of his journey. It taught him discipline, time management, and resilience. One day, while working at the cafe, he overheard two customers talking about an internship program at the White House. James's ears perked up. This was his chance. He quickly researched the internship program and found that it was one of the most competitive programs in the country. Thousands of students applied, but only a few were selected. The application required essays, recommendation letters, and an interview process. James knew he had to give it his all. He spent weeks preparing, refining his resume, and practicing his interview skills. He wanted to prove that he was worthy of the opportunity. Chapter 4: The Internship Application. Applying for the White House internship was one of the most stressful moments in James's life. He had to write an essay about why he wanted to work at the White House. He spent days perfecting his words, making sure they reflected his passion and dedication. "Why do you want to work at the White House?" the application form asked. James wrote, "I believe in the power of leadership and the importance of serving one's country. The White House is where history is made, and I want to be part of that. I want to learn from the best, contribute my skills, and make a difference in the world." He gathered recommendation letters from his professors, mentors, and even his cafe manager, who admired his work ethic. The final step was the interview. James, dressed in his best suit, walked into the White House internship office and faced a panel of interviewers. "Tell us about yourself, James. What makes you a good candidate for this program?" one of them asked. James took a deep breath. "I come from a small town, but I have big dreams. I have worked hard to get here, and I believe that leadership is about service, dedication, and making a real impact. Given this opportunity, I will give my best every single day." The interviewers nodded, impressed by his sincerity. Chapter 5: The Big News. Weeks passed, and James waited anxiously for the results. Every day felt like a year. Then, one morning, his phone rang. "Hello, James. This is the White House internship office. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the program." James was speechless. His dream was coming true. He called his parents immediately. "Mom, Dad, I got the internship. I'm going to work at the White House." His parents were overjoyed. "We always knew you could do it, son. We are so proud of you." James knew this was just the beginning, but he was ready for the journey ahead. Chapter 6: First Day at the White House. James arrived at the White House on a bright Monday morning, feeling both excited and nervous. Dressed in his best suit, he stepped through the grand gates and into the heart of the nation's leadership. The White House was even more impressive up close, with its towering columns and historic aura. He was greeted by Ms. Daniels, the internship coordinator, who handed him his schedule. "Welcome, James. You will be assisting in the communications office. Your job is to research, draft reports, and sometimes help with press briefings. Are you ready?" James nodded eagerly. He knew that every task, no matter how small, was a step toward his dream. As he walked through the hallways, he saw portraits of past presidents, and his determination grew stronger. This was his chance to prove himself. Chapter 7: Learning from the Best. Over the next few weeks, James worked tirelessly. He studied speeches, assisted in writing statements, and observed how decisions were made at the highest level. One afternoon, he was given a special assignment to summarize a recent policy announcement for a senior advisor. Determined to do his best, he spent hours researching and refining his work. When he handed it in, his supervisor smiled. "This is well written, James. You have a strong grasp of policy communication. Keep it up." That moment filled James with pride. He was no longer just an intern. He was contributing to something meaningful. He realized that success wasn't just about talent, but about persistence and willingness to learn. Chapter 8: A Defining Moment. One day, James was asked to prepare a briefing under tight deadlines. It was an important task, and his supervisor trusted him to deliver. Though nervous, he focused and worked efficiently, summarizing key points clearly. When he handed it in, his supervisor nodded. "Good work, James. We'll use this." At that moment, James knew he had proven himself. He had handled pressure and contributed to something meaningful. This experience strengthened his confidence, showing him that he truly belonged in the world of politics. Thank you for listening to James's journey. We hope this story helps you improve your English listening skills. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can listen to more inspiring lessons. Do you have any thoughts about James's story? Or do you have ideas for future stories? Leave a comment below and share your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time on the English Listen Lab. Goodbye and happy learning.